Kevin Cooney for theathletic.com, longtime Phillies beat writer. He joins us now with a look at the plan of action for Matt Klentak. And, Kevin, which is kind of an important offseason all of a sudden. I mean, this team has lied in the weeds long enough. I mean, at what point are the fans and some people are going to start putting a closer eye on what Klentak and company are doing over there?
Well, I think really, guys, this offseason is kind of the first one that people are going to hold a harsh light. I think the problem, though, is when you look at it, I don't think, at least in the free agent market, that there is a game changer that is available or, quite honestly, is desirable in my mind for what the Phillies need. And their primary need is starting pitching. I mean, if you think about it, guys, would you be in love with the idea of spending $25 million for the next 7 years on Yu Darvish, or $20 million for the next 5 years, or $25 million the next 5 years on Jake Arrieta? And it really doesn't change the needle for the Phillies at that point. So I think where Klentak's going to have to do, and look, they're not looking at bats, I think, at all right now. I think what they're going to have to do is get creative, and it's probably going to mean packaging some of their prospects. It may mean disrupting that middle infield they have at this point. But to get a starting pitcher of some reputation, Klentak's going to have to do that. Otherwise, I think you're going to see another year where there won't be a lot of off-season changes, kind of angling towards what's going to happen next offseason when the big free agent class comes out.
Yeah, I think you're right that there's not a real move out there for people to get excited about. But when Matt Klentak is getting ready for this offseason, what are some of the possible moves you think he has up his sleeve? Who are some of the guys that he may call other teams and say, hey, we've got so-and-so. Any interest there?
Well, I mean, look, I think there are a couple guys here that you have to keep an eye on their market. One is going to be Chris Archer with the Rays, and Ken Rosenthal wrote today on the Athletics site about the fact that Tampa really has to start examining, just starting from scratch again. And if that's the case, Archer, who's I think 2 years away from free agency, would be a good fit maybe for the Phillies, who have a lot of prospects who could help kickstart that Tampa rebuild. I think Archer would be one. Another guy would be Garrett Cole of the Pirates. Cole obviously has pitched in some playoff games and everything. He's another one of those guys who's getting towards that free agency mark. He had kind of an inconsistent year last year, but there's still a lot of talent there. I think if you're looking at it from a Philly standpoint, again, it's a team that is probably going to be starting towards a rebuild. Andrew McCutcheon's going to be out there probably this offseason as well. You got to kick the tires on Cole and assume that he is going to be available. Other than that, would the Rangers consider trading Cole Hamels? I don't think so yet, but that's possible. Would the Red Sox? Would you want to take David Price off the Red Sox hands? And just hope that last year was a bad year. The danger is if you bring in a David Price. To be honest, one, you're paying a lot of, you're taking on a really bad contract, and two, you're taking on a guy who last year didn't exactly reveal himself as somebody you necessarily want to have in a clubhouse that was filled with young players. I mean, you're talking about a guy who was kind of, a jerk, for lack of a better term. This type of stuff has to be factored in. I think those are the names you look at on the free agent, and Tyler Chatwood would be a guy who's like a second-tier guy who I could see the Phillies going after. Lance Lynn would be another. There's Alex Cobb. Those are lower-tier free agents, and I don't know if they move the needle for people around here, but I think it's an upgrade considering what they have right now.
Well, Kevin, you just touched on the two names that I had teed up in the hopper and ready to go because, fans, they want that big name. Like, hey, the Phillies got XYZ, and Lance Lynn and Alex Cobb may not have that marquee value, but what do they bring to the table? What can you tell us about those two pitchers that would be a good fit in Philadelphia?
Well, Lance Lynn is a veteran. He's a veteran. I personally am not a love with Lance Lynn. I mean, he's a guy who's had some good years for the Cardinals, but he's never been that I've got to go see him type of guy. He's big, 6'5", 275. I kind of would be interested if the Phillies are really that interested in him. They're going to have to really weigh the rest of the market. I mean, I don't know if there's a huge market for him. And if there, is he the type of guy that you really feel like you want to bring in here as the anchor of your staff? I mean, he's 11-8, a 3.43 last year. I just didn't. He doesn't do anything for me. It sounds strange. I mean, he's. I know in his career, like, he's above 500, obviously above 500, but he's not. He's not an overpowering guy. He's not somebody who I necessarily want to invest heavily on. And he's also going to be over. He's going to be 31 years old next year, and he's had some injury issues. So, would I feel necessarily super comfortable with him? No, but I think that's an angle that they'll look at, and certainly, again, second-tier type guy. Alex Cobb's a little more interesting to me. I think Alex Cobb, the idea that he's a little more polished, I think when you look at some of the things with Alex Cobb that I want to see kind of develop. And again, he's pitching in a situation the last couple of years where they've been a little bit, behind the eight ball, but there are times when he looks like he can be a dominant pitcher, and I think he's a better upside pick. I know he's still 30. He's a little bit younger. He's like 6 months younger than Lynn is. He's, I think, more of an upside pick here than Lynn. That's my own opinion.
Is there any fix from within? I mean, other than Nola, right? There's not a lot of guys that moved the needle that were on the starting rotation last year.
Well, I think you're going to see Eichhoff back. If you want to look at this, they may go into the season again, and I can hear the groan coming from Mike as soon as I mention this name. I could see Vince Velasquez back in the rotation, and them giving him one more go to get this right. They think that they'll find something from some of these guys. I keep waiting for them to kind of wake up and see that it's not necessarily going to be there. But they are, they think that they're going to get something from one or two of these guys at some point down the road, and that's fine. I mean, you can think it, but you also better have a game plan to go, further than this. And I don't know if right now they necessarily have that. I mean, you're going to talk Nola, you're going to talk Eichhoff. I would imagine you see Velasquez in the rotation. Pivetta may get a shot again. But you're going to need 6 starters, so you need 2 more at least.
Well, here's the thing, and we're talking with Kevin Cooney, special to theathletic.com. Check out his piece on the Phillies offseason. The way baseball's going, specifically in the playoffs, I don't know about the regular season, but these pitchers, like 4 or 5 innings, I mean, that's not going to be –
I knew you would go there. I knew you would go there, Mike, and let me tell you, okay?
So I might be more inclined to give Velasquez another shot if that's the philosophy.
Yeah, but look, October baseball is an entirely different animal, okay? You can run a starter out there for 2 times around the lineup in October, turn it over to your bullpen because, A, the pressure is so high, B, it sounds strange to say this, but it's not an everyday opportunity. There's more off days built in, everything. There's also the end of a season and everything. You want to do that in June and July. And this is one thing about Gabe Kapler I'm going to be fascinated by to see. Does he buy into the Dodger philosophy? And the Dodger philosophy is 3rd time around the lineup, you got a guy with a quick hook, okay? Unless his name's Kershaw. You're not seeing guys who go super deep in the games. That's the analytic way. If the Phillies are going to try to do that, especially with and even if they try to build up their bullpen, okay, which is possible. I mean, there's a lot of bullpen arms out there. If they want to go in that route, they could go try to build the bullpen up that way and kind of piecemeal it together. Hope your starter gives you 5 or 6. By the end of June and July, you're done. You are fried if you don't have a starter that can regularly go 6 innings a couple times around in a rotation. If you need 2 or 3 of those guys, I think that give you 6 every night, and then you can build your bullpen 7th, 8th, 9, and that's the perfect formula anymore. I don't think that you could just count on the fact that what works in the postseason is going to translate into a regular season. I don't think baseball is designed to work that way because of the grind of the game.
Kevin, and by the way, I agree with you. You're right. I mean, when you tell me Velasquez, at what point do you just say, look, let's move on? And there's a lot of guys at these.
He's a closer.
Yes.
He's a closer. His stuff is a closer stuff.
Agree. And they got a lot of guys that they got to make decisions on. Those trades that they made at the end of the Amaro era, they got to start making decision on who those guys are.
Well, Jake Thompson would be one of them, and Thompson did look decent in his time in Philadelphia. He had 8 starts. He finished 3-2. He wasn't awful. He wasn't great, but he also struggled for most of the year too. Velasquez is one of them. Pivetta is another. Eflin is another. I mean, all these guys. You're right. These are guys that we're now 3 years removed from the end of that era, and by now you're right. You should have a better feel for it. Now you have an Eshelman coming up, and maybe Eshelman gets a look here next year too. I mean, I think it's easy to forget about him at times, and the Phillies kind of last year didn't want to call him up to start that clock. It's kind of like the same thing I would imagine with Kingery. I don't think you'll see him until May or June, but they do need to start getting answers on this, because this is the year, guys. They have to make a leap forward. If they want to be serious players next year for Machado, for Harper, for big name free agents.
Good point.
You got to prove it now. Everybody has money. Everybody has money, and everybody can go spend money because of the Major League Baseball advanced media deal that produces big cash flow into these teams and everything. There's money to be had for every team out there. Players will go not just where the money is, but where they can win. And if they don't feel like the Phillies are capable of winning, there's no shot for them to get anybody. That's why they're not in the Stanton race right now. That is the main reason Giancarlo Stanton will not be in Philadelphia.
I was going to follow with that, Kevin. Give us a skinny on that, because they're one team that keeps coming up. They hired the hitting coach from Florida that worked with him a lot. So there's a lot of dots. There's been a lot of dots there since July to connect, but it doesn't seem like there's anything that really makes you feel like that's going to happen.
Well, there's one big reason why. If Giancarlo Stanton right now is turning down an opportunity to go play at Fenway Park for the Red Sox, who just won a division, and turning down an opportunity to go play for the Cardinals, two teams that are in contention every year, and the Phillies have not shown that yet. Why would people think he would come here? He has that no trade right, and that's the easy way. It's easy to throw the Phillies out there if you're, and I'm not bashing national writers, because I think part of it is due diligence, but I think that you throw names out against the wall, and I think people sometimes take that as fact. To me, the truth is that Giancarlo Stanton's not coming here, and I think that when people understand that, they'll be better off.
Kevin Cooney with us, which means that if you're looking for somebody to put the ball over the wall or hit the ball out of the park, Rhys Hoskins is the guy that they're going to have to hope improves in year number 2. Do you think the upside on him is improvement, Kevin? Because I've seen some articles and stuff out there that says, hey, just 14 of those 50 starts came against teams that were 500 or better. Maybe his numbers were skewered. Do you think the sky is going, or the upside is on the rise for Rhys Hoskins in year 2?
Well, I think the one thing Hoskins proved, and look, he had a little struggle at the end of the season, but the one thing he proved is he has been able to adapt in the way that he approached pitchers. Now, pitchers made an adaptation to him as the clock was running out, if you will, at the end of the season. I think his approach translates well to continued improvement. Now, does that mean he's going to be an all-star? Not necessarily. Is he going to have some moments of struggle? Yeah. But I think that on the Phillies' list of concerns, Rhys Hoskins would be in the bottom, like, you know, at the bottom. I mean, period. I'm trying to think of one thing that the Phillies could have more or less concern about, and Hoskins is pretty much it.
Player most likely to be moved, in your opinion, or the guy that most likely is on his way out of town?
Well, I beyond the Cameron Rupp, Tommy Joseph crew, you know, where obviously they don't fit in. You know, Rupp because they have to keep Alfaro on the roster next year. Knapp kind of showed that he could be a little more versatile and everything. Alfaro, I think, will get the bulk of the starts at catcher. You know, if they're going to bring catcher in, I wouldn't be surprised if they brought in a veteran just to kind of tutor Alfaro, if you will, on the actual catching of a game and calling a game. Joseph, there's no place for him right now, just here. I mean, you know, he can have a lot of power, but, you know, he's never going to see the field with Hoskins there. I would think the interesting guy to look here is at Cesar Hernandez. Now, Freddie Galvis is going to be a free agent next year. The logical thing is that it seemed like they wanted to move Freddie, but I think you can get more of a market for that pitcher that you want for Hernandez than you can for Galvis, obviously. And so I would think that Hernandez would be the guy to watch. But, guys, I would not be surprised if all those pieces, all four of those pieces that fit into that second, short, third dynamic, and that's Franco, Crawford, Galvis, and Hernandez, are here at the start of next season, and then they'll try to fish it out as the trade deadline comes closer.
Well, spring training should be interesting. The winter meetings, the owners' meetings this week. Kevin Cooney over at The Athletic. Check out that article with Matt Klentak. Do you like what Klentak has done? I mean, it just seems like there's not a lot of anything on him. He's just kind of been living under the rock there for the last couple of years that no one's really been paying attention to them.
It's the way the franchise has been really for the last 5 years, if you think about it.
I mean, it seems like right away, like, you know, regardless of who you are in this town, when they get hired, there's some sort of reaction. It didn't seem like there was positive reaction, negative reaction, just nothing.
I think that the reaction to Klentak has been kind of a shrug. You're right. You know, and I think part of that is because the Phillies have fallen off the radar. I mean, look, in this town, I'll make the argument that I think they still have more attention than the Flyers, but they certainly fallen behind the Eagles and the Sixers on the hierarchy around here. I think also the fact that his moves have he's been hamstrung a little bit. I know it sounds strange to say that, but you know, this talent deficit that he walked into was so deep. I think that revealed itself even last year. You know, Maikel Franco was billed as the next big thing for this franchise. And I think it took 2 years to figure out he's just a guy. You know, he's not awful, but he's not a cornerstone.
Yeah, it's a shame.
And I think that tells you kind of what the deficit was. He was the best player when he walked in here. And I think that tells you what Klentak was dealing with.
Kevin Cooney, everybody. Make sure you give him a follow there and check out that article at The Athletic at Kevin Cooney. And we appreciate the time, pal.
No problem. Thanks a lot, Mike.